Well, I hope you took some sleeping bags and so on, because it's kind of a long topic. But I try to summarize it. How many are you aware of what the export offices are doing? Kind of. Okay. It's a good thing that it's an immediate confusion, because export offices are started from 80s in France, actually. When we were speaking about Europe, actually Dutch was the Hollands were the first with an export office, and it originally started to simply push bands abroad, to help bands to get more exposure outside of the country, and in many cases it was simple fact that government were paying bands to play as many places as possible. When it happened at that time, it was not really on the base of create a sustainable future. In many cases, it was simply just to support as many bands as possible, because it was in the cultural policy that these and these countries, and I'm not going to start because it's basically it happened with many countries, wanted to have more of their artists as like a cultural, diplomatic, blah, 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 tool outside of the country. This whole perspective changed a lot. And when we are speaking about export office and export offices, actually every single country kind of has at this moment a totally different system. In some countries, the export offices are supported by government. In some other countries, it was started by the Collecting Rights Society. In some other countries, it was simply started by companies. That's from the scene, for instance, Estonia, Music Estonia started by simply companies that wanted to have a bigger market or have their bands to tour abroad, put together some money of their own, they gain their own fund, and they hired a few people to start working. And then later on, the culture ministry started to help them. That's one thing. I'm speaking, that's why I said I tried to summarize it. So I asked already Anna to ask direct questions at some point, because I can get lost in some directions. But what is really important to understand, our aim is, one hand, of course, to have as many Czech bands as possible outside. But our aim is really to prepare to not just support, but to invest in music. That means that to give or try to connect you with people that can help you, try to create environments, like link you to people that can help, giving knowledge, and giving many, many other possible helping or helps to get you on a track where you can actually earn your money in order to make a living out of music. How many of you can make a living out of music? Yeah, something like that. So that's quite a general thing, like Europe-wise. It's also because I'm working for like 20 years in different music sector things, from Sziget Festival to club to many. But when it gets to being a musician yourself, now I believe that there are some tools that can help most of us that we don't really use yet. From merchandise to sing to many. That's also one of our aim to give all this knowledge. That's one part of it. The other part of it, that export offices are at this moment focusing a lot on showcase festivals. That's why one of our topic is showcase festivals. Showcase festivals are not, once again, a general thing, because it's simply a tool that you can use really effectively, but you can really use it the opposite way, meaning if the timing is wrong, if you're not prepared, then you might have loosened possibilities that would help you to your next level. So we are supporting Czech professionals. Most of you saw our call-ups on the website to go to different events and festivals, and we are trying to make like networking sessions to get professionals connected to local professionals. Getting back, and you could have a frequently asked question, how much money we have for tour and this support. Our budget is quite limited. At this moment, we are working on to have it to create programs and also include different other partners as well. In fact, the SoundCzech works this year with 4.4 million coronas, included all the personal costs as well. So all the people who are working paid from that money, workshops, supporting professionals, supporting bands that are going. That simply means that we don't have enough money or budget left, even though if we would love to have big, huge open calls to tour wherever. That's one thing. The other thing is that we would support that in case it's reasonable. And now, to explain how it makes it reasonable, SoundCzech works with an advisory board of Czech professionals. It's a 9-member board. The board will be, this board is active till 2000, late 19, and every 2 years we're gonna have new selection of board members. The idea was that whenever we have a decision, all the decisions should be filtered by professionals from the scene. So our aim actually is to gain the most out of every single small step. So that's why we start different programs. For instance, you will see by the beginning of April, after these workshops, we will have a few call-ups again. One call-up is tour support for Austria. It's the yearly tour support for 2018. We don't have a huge budget. That's for 300,000 coronas sum. So it's basically halves the travel costs. And also we will have an open call for educative partners. It's for educational sessions for workshops.
Maybe you can also introduce the other programs like SoundCzech Connect,
oh yes.
Also the co-ops for the professionals.
Yes, we have several projects. We try to have some simply, quite simplified names. One is SoundCzech Connect, which is a project that aims to help bands. Originally we thought of like younger bands, but it basically doesn't have any limit who can apply to it. The aim for that project was to have an exchange concerts in which you have a partner, a touring partner, you go abroad, you have a gig there, and you have a gig here in Czech Republic. And the aim of that was to gain public on one hand, and to start collaborating with other bands and other partners. I mean, most of you, I think every one of us has this typical example to travel to a country and you have 7 to 13 visitors on the show, and then you take the huge fee and you go back home. The aim is simply to change a bit on that. It's basically a limited budget program, but we thought of as a first starting project for bands. And that's one hand. The other hand, it was aimed to give kind of proactive mentality to start. That's the first steps. We have to say we are open, and that's, I will add it in several times. We are open for your questions during the year. So please contact us if you have questions or something. We will try to help. Might take a bit time sometimes because we are running crazy like poison mice, but we will get back to you for sure. That's SoundCzech Connect. The other is SoundCzech on Tour. That is exactly a project which will be open for Austria. That was a follow-up of another session. Last year we had Czech Republic as a focus country at Waves Vienna, where actually Cold Nights also played and Basel also played, so that's why I was reacting like The original idea was last year we couldn't communicate properly because we were there, we were really young. The aim was to have a kind of a focus country where we try to organize more meeting possibilities. Last year it was Austria, and then following the next year we support to tour in that country. Food for thought, keep in mind next year it will be Poland. So we have still open call for Poznan spring break until the 1st of April, so you should just get on the website and apply there. We are doing networking session and meeting session in Poznan during the spring break festival, and the aim is also to help to connect you for the next year's touring support, so you have something in hand. That's one thing. The other thing which you have in hand is that the SoundCzech Connect program will continue. We will have another call-up also from the beginning of April. That means that with all this knowledge, you have already something in hand that you can offer to possible partners, and you contact them. So based on these small projects, we try to contact other export offices and other partners to, as they are also running similar programs, so we are combining efforts to put together as many meeting possibilities as we can.
Can I ask a question?
Ask.
The SoundCzech Connect, the new call, it will be for gigs until the end of the year?
Yes. 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 We are working under IDU, Institut Umění Divadelní ústav, and we are a sub-office of IDU. That means that we have to follow, in many cases, the administration of what Czech Republic has. We try to be flexible, but in many cases we can't be as much as we would love to. That's why all the projects we start, in many cases, it also goes back to beginning of the year in some cases. So for SoundCzech Connect, we already had a collab, and I'd like to push for another round. So back to the actual things. In April, we are at Tallinn Music Week. That collab was already closed. We have a meeting session at Tallinn Music Week on the 6th of April. And then after that, we are at the Frankfurt Music Messe. The calls are still open, so please go on the website, be informed, because we try to get to as many places as possible. And it's actually really good that we have this FAQ plus the showcase topic together, because I think it's immediately quite good to connect. We have a dramaturgical board, as I said, and when we have lots of interest to different events, we are always running through the applications and looking at the application with the dramaturgical board. It simply means that and that's why I said it's linked to showcase festivals, because in many cases it's really good to see which event you're applying to, both as a musician or as a professional. And that's pretty much the same issue what's happening from the dramaturgical board side. And I can tell different other organizers who are working the same. For instance, the booker of Eurosonic Norderslag. He's also thinking the same way, to look at kind of the band's background, and to look at like how much a given band or professional can capitalize on this or that event. So I'm telling this because in some cases we reject applications, but it's not because you're not good or whatever, but simply because the profile of the event might be different, and we have a different set of applicants. So that means that please keep on applying and communicate with us. So we go to Frankfurt Music Messe, which is quite a new thing, because Frankfurt Music Messe, I think many of you know, is kind of the old school European music instrument trade fair. They are renewing themselves. So in many cases, for ages, it was the old hard rock, long-haired gray guys picking the guitar strings. Now it's a bit different. We are working also together with a German booking. Actually, it's one of the best promotion PR company in Germany called Factory 92. They are doing Sziget, Roskilde, Robbie Williams, and somehow we started to cooperate quite well. So they are doing many projects that we are doing internationally. So they are our promotional partners. They are also the promotional agency of Frankfurt Musikmesse. And we start something there which might result in successes for the next years to come. But one thing is for sure, nothing is guaranteed in music. I think most of us know that. So we work the same way as most of the export offices, and we have actually lots of discussion within ourselves that basically everyone is trying to reinvent the Spanish wax, we call. It's simply because we try to come up with the best tools and the best possible ways to break the market and somehow make our bands more visible outside. So Frankfurt Musikmesse is also one of this. Then we are going to Jazz Ahead first time, and also to Spring Break, which is the biggest Polish music meeting. Most of the Polish promoters are bands and venues are there. Once again, I want to put emphasis on that Polish people are quite open to collaborate. So should keep it in mind. And also, once again, it goes when it's speaking about export, that we were doing the export office in Hungary ages ago, and I don't want to speak about that because we changed a lot ever since. But even at that time, the kind of mind bug was to get to London and play gigs in London, which was completely pointless. And I know more than a dozen bands who tried and got back home completely broke, because going to London, which is the most busiest town for young talent, and try something there, hoping for someone maybe will just pop in half drunk to my show and will pick my band, it doesn't make much sense. That's why I really put the emphasis on look at the neighboring countries, try to make exchanges. That's also the reason we are collaborating a lot with neighboring countries, because in many of these countries are not yet visible enough. And this kind of partly not too honest business works on, even if your band is great, you're not gonna be picked because the scene is not as strong. Let's say when you go to a big showcase event and you are playing, and it's, of course it's not a football and it's not a contest which band and how, but if there was, like, for instance at Eurosonic Norderslag, we had a good discussion with the director of St. Gallen Opener. It's a Swiss major opener festival, and we were speaking about, like, which band he would choose. And he was saying that he would choose the bands who has connections around, who has already some booking agents, and who has some promotion there. Against the one who he might like even better, but if he put it and he weighted it, and that was simply, that's why we're working a lot on trying to make these kind of connections. So music professional, and even the terminology is a funny thing. It's like managers. How many of you are managers as such? Okay, so we know what's the difference between manager and booking agent, because, like, the first step I already see, like, there's a huge, sometimes when I'm going, like, misunderstanding. That management to take completely care of the band, and the booking agent who just calls the venues if it's a good booking agent, and keeping his network to get as much gigs as possible. I'm just saying this because, and we can also slowly shift towards the showcase festivals. I'm saying this because in many cases we have to build our careers. The reason why I'm asking management as such, I'm not sure. How many of you are thinking in a longer distance? Like, how many years you're thinking ahead? Who's thinking ahead with the band? I'm asking that. I used to be a musician. I was like, I'm not saying a good musician, no. But I was really, really crappy. And even though I was working in music, we never really planned properly, ever. Just smoking, going, playing, okay. The band suddenly kicked in and there were loads of people coming and then, there's loads of people, what to do now? So it's basically, and it's gonna be pretty simplified, and for some of you kind of American marketing stupidities. So it's much more flexible than this. But the question, and why I am telling this is because we have a big news this year, or recent news, is that 2019, the Eurosonic Northern Slag Festival, Czech Republic and Slovakia will be the focus country. Why this is interesting is that Eurosonic Northern Slag is the biggest showcase industry event for the European live music industry. That's one thing. The other thing is that when there's a focus country, it doesn't just simply mean that there are more bands that can go there, but there are much more that we can do. Meaning that we can show and create much more possibilities for a country. If these focuses are happening well, then the simple information that Czech Republic is really strongly on the map, it will somehow burn in the mind of even bookers that they weren't really thinking about it. And when the years after you will get back to different bookers, they will, it will ring the bell. Oh yes, Czech Republic. But I can put it here, maybe. That's Eurosonic, Northern Slag. And this could be, South. It's South by Southwest. I'm rather telling it because I said you might not be ready for my fantastic writing. So, okay. The different levels. South by Southwest, if you're there as a band, you firstly, because of the simple visa reasons, and because we don't want to pay that much, you cannot get any gigs in America unless you have a proper working contract if you get paid. South by Southwest is basically one of the only American possibility to go where actually, because the event already has a good connection with Tamizdat, which is a legal organization, they try to help musicians to get into the US. That's why they make it easier for bands to get to South by Southwest. South by Southwest is kind of a, I'm thinking of a really horrible picture. You can take it, as a musician, you have to play and take every gig possibility as given there. That also means that you have to be so ready in mind and in all that it's an oxymoron in many cases, that you go to an event which is like shiny, big hype thing, and you're not playing in the environment that you would expect to play. When you get to South by Southwest, most of the bands are quite developed at home. You have like, I don't know, minimum 1,000 people on the show, or 500 to big festivals a lot. And then you get to South by Southwest, and many bands. We just had a discussion with Peter, who's doing the Swedish export office. They are doing several gigs, and they are actually preparing Swedish bands to play there. And we had this, that actually out of 10 gigs, around 2 are the ones that actually make it. And out of like 5 bands, maybe 1 band that doesn't get pushed by the pressure or doesn't feel after the whole showcase happened that they couldn't show the best that is happening. I'm not speaking about this to scare anyone. I'm simply saying that these are kind of the years of existence of the band. And we still believe in many cases, that we can jump to the end from the beginning. And my personal view, for instance, and it's not a Czech scene, it's a general, I think, geographical thing, that as there are not that many bands, for instance, for a festival like Eurosonic Norders, like that there are many cases that the bands that are playing at Eurosonic, which is not even South by Southwest, the band when plays at Eurosonic, the band is not ready. And when you play at this time and you're not ready, then you lost the possibility to be booked to lots of places. That's why in many cases when there are like showcase festival, and that's why I asked about the management things. If you have like a vision or plan ahead, it makes actually sense to look for a smaller showcase events and to build your contacts, to build the bands, wait it out. I can say some not entirely true and partly bullshit things, so there's no criteria when and what exact level you have to feel it actually, and you have to know in your mind how many contacts are. I have a lots of contact already to at the German market and German scene and Austria, and that makes sense to go to waves and push it. And when you go there, you prepare your contacts, prepare the people to go there, and then you play. Then the band grows a bit more, so then it makes sense to have Reaper band. For instance, to go to Germany. Germany is pretty much the same, that you can have some gigs, but these showcase events usually is to get in touch with on that can actually pick you up and provide lots of gigs, even though even on an agency, if an agency picks you up as a band, the job is not done usually. The job is that's something. It's a good card to have, but in many cases, for instance, Asphalt Tango, that's world music fusion agency. I know for ages that they were picking up lots of like Central Eastern European bands, but they kept the whole scene of bands as kind of the second or the third line of their roster. That means that whenever the heavy hitters, let's say the ones that they could ask the most money, were not available, they were pushing the younger ones up. But that also means that if you stay there and if you're proving yourself more, or you're going on and you have a better, everyone is going perfect and there are no crash in the band and everyone loves each other and it just goes like perfect, then it happens that in a year or two, the agency that you might have picked you up at Crossroads, Nouvelle Prague, or Bush, that's like a small Austrian agency, gets your gig at the Waves, and at Waves you have a deal with the German one, and you wait a bit and then you get to Reeperbahn. It doesn't necessarily have to be there. So you can argue with me that yes, there's like, I don't know, John Peel heard our CD and wants to play it in the radio, and yes, it's so good. But there are thousands of bands that were played by John Peel and didn't affect their career at all until some agent who had a CD that you gave him 2 or 3 years ago finds the CD. He doesn't even listen it, just keep it on the table because he's bored of listening CD, and he meets you at another place, has a beer with you, you speak, and he just puts the small crumplets together in the picture and starts helping. Okay, 1 sec. Technical intermission. So, things that are, I think, quite important. If you go or thinking of Showcase Festival, start thinking about your own. It might mean, or it might sound stupid, but you really have to think about where you are at this moment. What are your, it's a quite easy task everyone can do at home, and I think you will be surprised. It takes 5 minutes. We could do it now, but maybe later You take a pen, a paper, and you start writing down your connections. Who do I know as a musician, as an agent? Before going anywhere, just on one hand, it's a really good practice because if you're down and you do that, if you're thinking, oh shit, nothing happens with me, no one will book, no one will have, like you just put it down on the paper, you just write it down who the connections are. Which festivals I'm collaborating, which radios I'm having in touch with, because these are your cards. Every single time you go showcase events or wherever, you are actually a connecting points. That's how we actually think with from SoundCzech. If you go somewhere, we take also these and keep many things. These are the Czech delegation lists. And it's always keep it in mind that our importance is how many connections we have. In many cases, it's not about what you can, what you are asking from someone, and that's also a different story, which I think Mark as well and many of the festivals can tell. If you go to a festival at a showcase event and you start the discussion with, oh, hello, I have this band, we played here and here, will you book us? The most probably the answer will be no, because you didn't start the communication the way, you didn't, you know. It's a familiar scene still. Even the ones who are kind of the hated, I don't know, from William Morris to down, all these people are into discussing. So whenever you approach them, it's a discussion. That's also the reason we are trying to make this kind of meeting sessions, to create environment when it's easier to speak to those people. That's one thing. The other thing is getting back to being prepared. It might also make sense, even if you don't have a manager or if you just have a band, to try to plan out your kind of miles, what you want to do ahead. Obviously, you can have a creative crisis, and then it's not about like, okay, next year I'm going to have an album or something. It's not really this, but to have some vision, what I would like to improve. Okay, I'd like to have the sound ready, the first 5 songs ready by the end of this year. I want to have it, and I want to check it around and have some feedbacks from people. Then get to the next level to improve the stage view and so on. Because the same kind of thinking would go with events as well. I'm going to write some in, so. And I'm not gonna I'm just putting it in here because then you can let's do it here, for instance. Okay. I put that there. I think it makes sense if you have a paper to do the same for yourself and think in years. It's like, let's say 2, 4. You don't have to write the same. You can think of. Okay. You can think of your own rhythm of when you will be or how you plan yourself. So don't get me wrong. It's once again, it's not a marketing mixture or whatever. It's just a simple view. I'm approaching it from this exactly because I met so many bands that were so good, but not at the moment ready to be picked up. I can tell actually even one story I'm quite often tell. It's a Eurosonic story, and that refers to another topic. It's there was a band. I think they are still active. Their name is Macaco. Macaco is a Spanish band. And they used to be quite big, like 2000 around, so on, like as big as like Manu Chao, or so heavier hip hop, funk, punk, whatever mixture. They were already filling up massive holes in Spain and in Portugal and in partly in Latin America as well. They went to Eurosonic. They were already main stage band, so big band. Eurosonic, they had a possibility to go to the Grand Theater, I think, and we were there at that time with Dan, who was the head booker of Sziget Festival, and who, by the way, was always interested in that sort of music. I know by fact because I used to be working in a small store doing Latin American punk rock section, and he was one of our best buyer, always came and bought stuff. So we were there like, okay, let's see the band. Huge stage, there was one song, great. The crowd was full because everyone wanted to see what's the big shot in Spain. So there were guys from Frequency, from Roskilde, from so on. After the first song went on, the singer Danny started to hype the crowd, like, hey, let's clap. So he did that for the bookers. 20% of the crowd immediately out. Then he got upset, he went on off the stage, and then the second guy said that, oh, and then listen, our DJ who just won DMC, perfect, he was scratching for 5 more minutes. Half of the rest of the people left, including Dan, who was really interested. He never booked the band ever, like didn't even think about that. None of the others. So this band at this moment showed a huge option and possibility, because at Eurosonic usually you can play once, and this band was ready. They had agent, they had label, they had everything that could be done. Just they didn't know where they are at that particular moment. I'm telling this because I was speaking a lot about the management part of it, but the musician and the artist part of Showcase Festival is also another. Firstly, the slots are really small. All the people who are going to watch you would like to see the band live on stage, how good the band live on stage, and what will they get when they book you. This is the most important information for anyone who wants to book a band. So prepare the songs and sets. And actually, you can even do that, because that sometimes works when you're going to a country where no one knows you. It makes sense to kind of have a showcase part of set of yourself, which are the best heavy hitter songs that can immediately go and move the people and just shake them up. Showcase festivals are pretty much about this. The other thing, which is quite the practical side of it, is showcase festivals are not known of giving all that is requested or required for the biggest of your shows. So you have to be as simple as possible when you go to Showcase Festival. To show as much, but once again, it's an oxymoron. You have small time, be simple, and show as much as possible. But unfortunately, it works like this. Exact example, which I think it's a quite good one. I think Kuzhal is not here. Last year at Reeperbahn, Midi Rabikat played, and they played at an opener venue. Actually, quite a good one, Spielbude. But as usual, and it happens, the venue technician didn't let the band to put the LEDs on, the lights on. They didn't want to let the band to use the desk. Of course, we tried to manage that. And these are circumstances and environments that not necessarily happening, but can really happen on showcase events. I have so many topics, like so many issues, and I had many issues and many experiences like exactly with this. But what happened with MIDI is that they put everything together the way, and they gave still a small but strong concert. And that's the professionality in this side. You might not get what you want. Even the sound might not be the best. But if you play your concert this way, then the one who wants to book you, or who were interested and who has a list of 16 bands to check that day might not book you. That's why I said the time, because it's kind of, you have to be prepared for that. Hopefully we will be having some projects. I plan to have some kind of tryout showcase stage before going to Eurosonic, but I trust that there will be much more band bands playing in different showcase events that we won't have possibility to give that to everyone. So the point there is that I'd like lots of bands playing outside. But when it's getting back to this, it's really important to be prepared in mind.